And now, let's start with the first module, Module 5 of the day. The program is available on the event platform. And this is going to be about, as just mentioned, formulation and implementation of a traceability and transparency action plan. And I'm pleased to invite on stage the moderators and presenters, Francesca, Romana, Rinaldi from Bocconi and UNECE project experts. Francesca, over to you to introduce the module and the speakers.
Thank you so much, Maria Teresa. Yeah, I agree with you. Yesterday has been a very interesting, intense, hectic day, I would say, full of inspiration as well. And then we actually entered into the training, and today we'll continue. This first session will be dedicated to how to build an action plan for transparency and traceability. And our key topic here will be the fact that it has to be connected and it has to be consistent and coherent with the overall sustainability strategy. So it's my pleasure now to welcome Andrea Redaelli, UNECE project expert, who has been a colleague in the last 2 years for this project. And it's really a pleasure to work with you, Andrea. So I leave the floor to you in a moment to introduce yourself a little bit better since you joined us today. And then we'll also have excellent guest speakers, Díaz Ibarra. And okay, so welcome again, Anna, and head of traceability of Inditex, and Omar Cadamuro, director retail and consumer at PwC. Actually, PwC is also one of the companies of the Monitor for Circular Fashion. We mentioned already PwC as partner, part of the KPIs committee yesterday. So welcome again, Omar. So today we'll start the interaction, I will say, because we're actually going to use polls. But before getting there, and actually let's take the chance, just a moment, to tell all the participants here in the auditorium that you can access the poll by just making a photo of the QR code that you have in front of you. And you can access directly the platform through the QR code. And you can just insert the login details, and you will access directly the poll. So just join the poll. Online, it's a little bit easier. So you just have it in front of you, join the poll. The poll is open, and with Andrea, we're going to drive you through the polls. Leave the floor to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and to all really for the very warm welcome this morning. True, correct. We are collaborating since more or less 2 years. And in my role as UNECE project expert, I had really the chance to learn a lot from all the colleagues here in the team, and also, let's say, to bring some experience and the way how to create an action plan, for transparency and traceability. But you're right, let's take immediately the chance with the audience here and the people there connected to us in a virtual mode to start with the poll.
Perfect.
Because it's important really to engage them, to know what they think about this topic, the traceability and transparency, in particular with a focus on how to create this action plan. So let's see then the first poll, and we will go through the poll together with you. I mean, by reading the content of the poll, so you will have enough time. Okay, thank you. You will have enough time then to understand the content and decide which is the best option, the best choice for you. The first question is how to shape the governance of a TT program. TT stands for Traceability and Transparency Program for your company. Here the questions are, it's a topic for the management board of the company, a shared responsibility among the different functions, departments in the company, a governance model including the most of the business partners in my value chain, an external and neutral organization should take care of the governance. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make your option, make your decisions, and then we move to the next poll, the number 2. what are the most relevant activities to start with if you want to step in action for a transparency and traceability program. Here, the questions is exactly trying to shape what you have to start with when you want to put in place this action plan, this program. So the first option is engage the customers, collect feedback, and follow up the voice of the customer. The second one is plan a common strategy and onboard your value chain partners in this initiative. So it's a more inclusive answer considering your value chain. The third option is identify some use cases as a proof of concept and then implement them and decide the next steps based on the results. And the last one is ask for the support of experienced people to create a specific program and go for its implementation in case you need external support. So also here, take your 5 seconds, Francesca. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then let's move to the next question, the next poll. How long does it take to fully implement a traceability and transparency program within a value chain? So it's also a matter of time. What's the expectation of the people in terms of timing for such a program? 1 year is enough. We need a bit more, between 1 and 3 years. We need more than 3 years. At the end, such a program has no end. It's a continuous activity. It's a program that starts and has no end because it goes as part of the operational business in each company. And this is the fourth option. So also here, take your 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. And thank you for the answers for these 3 first questions polls. Francesca, up to you for the next.
All right. I'm looking again at the questions, and I see that they're very hard to answer. So, but we'll comment all of them later on. So, what are the most relevant aspects of a transparency and traceability program to support a sustainability strategy? Is it number 1, evidence and foundation of the company claims? Is it number 2, coverage of social and environmental aspects? 3, inclusion of all the partners in the value chain? Or 4, measurable data and reliable information? So take some seconds here to answer, and we go now to the next question. All right. So which sentence better describes how open is your company to share information about products and value chain activities? Number 1, the information about the product tracking is necessary. The full transparency is optional, and we understood that it's very different, so traceability and transparency is different. Transparency is needed. Full and open information must be published, but under a clear roadmap established by policymakers and organizations. Or, our statement is full and open information must be published from the origin to the end consumer. Or, finally, we'll provide all the information upon request. Take some seconds also here. And we go to the next and final question. What are the main drivers to convince your company to dedicate investment and resources to implement a transparency and traceability program? A positive effect on reputation and brand positioning, a direct impact on company profitability, additional services for the customers and the suppliers in the value chain, or a progress for the entire community towards a more sustainable environment. So you have just one option here, unfortunately. All right, so once again, the answers will be discussed during our interactive discussion with both Omar and Anna. So you will have still a few minutes, actually, if you want to go back to the questions and make your answers. We'll leave it open for a little bit. I will tell you when they will be closed, okay, so that we can elaborate to the results, and we'll discuss the results with you. All right. So let's start, I would say, Andrea, so we can enter a little bit more into the core topic of our session, and then we get ready for the Anna's speech first, and then the interaction with you, with the results of the poll. So we understood clearly that we need to have a strategy behind traceability and transparency. There is no other way to go forward, because traceability and transparency, it's complex, actually. We understood it yesterday. It's needed also in order to build trust for all the stakeholders, but we understood that it doesn't happen like this. So we actually need to have a strategy. It has to be consistent with the overall sustainability strategy of the companies, and it has to be well planned. So that's why in the policy recommendation document, we also elaborated an Annex 1, actually, and is actually dedicated to the action plan, how to build an action plan. And this is what we would like to see with you, step by step, actually, with Andrea. So let's enter into the first step of an action plan in our action plan summary. So vision. What is the vision statement? We defined as the summary, basically, of the objectives of a traceability and transparency system, but also the benefits for all the stakeholders involved. A vision statement, as a matter of fact, should provide guidance and direction, and should also be a source of inspiration and motivation for all the partners, all the stakeholders involved. It should start from and also be consistent, as we said, with the overall sustainability strategy. So it's not a silos, actually. We're not building silos here. It should be connected with that. And let me just make an example. You see it here. An example of a clear vision statement is our vision is to promote the application of the highest social, environmental, and health and safety principles during the creation of products for our customers throughout the entire value chain. So here it's clear that you provide guidance, direction. It's a source of inspiration and motivation. It starts from the objectives that you have in your overall sustainability strategy, and it also makes clear the benefits that you will share with your stakeholders. So Andrea, I leave the floor to you for the next step.
Yeah, the objectives. It's true. I mean, they are already partially identified in the vision, but definitely we need to have a focus, a specific focus on the objectives. In the project management area, it's pretty much clear that we use these words, this acronym in reality, SMART. The objectives have to have some specific characteristics, like as specific, so to be very clear when we address an objective on what's the content. Measurable, and we will see that in order to measure something, it's important at first to identify a KPI. And maybe, Francesca, you can tell us a bit more, because you did a quite interesting discussion on KPIs. So to measure an objective is definitely the first instance, the first step to show that we have reached a certain level goal. Attainable and relevant in terms of, okay, they have to be realistic, they have to be relevant, consistent with the content of the idea, of the vision, of what the business wants to do. And time-bound. It happens that sometimes we don't consider the dimension of the timing, but definitely this is a wrong approach, because by setting very clear targets on time, considering also the time dimension, helps also the entire team, the entire business, the industry, to see that something is really feasible and achievable. So an example of a SMART objective is here mentioned. Attain full traceability for the top 30% of the products, of our products, considering a company, by collecting information about products and process characteristics through the whole value chain within 3 years. In the pilot, in the blockchain, Francesca, we did exactly something like that. Mm-hmm. We have set some objectives in a very clear way. So our intention was, for instance, in the first pilot with the cotton, to identify exactly some value chains with a minimum set number of partners, with a minimum of claims, and so on and so on. So making it very concrete and clear, touching the ground.
Yeah.
What do you think about the KPIs? You said that you had a discussion on
yesterday we discussed about KPIs. There were KPIs related to both transparency, traceability, but also sustainability and circularity. It was the moment of the Monitor for Circular Fashion research, key findings, but also the Circular Fashion Manifesto with all the commitments of the companies of the monitor that identified in the last months clear KPIs to also measure the results. But how do we find KPIs and how we implemented also this theory to practice? Basically, we started from a gap analysis. So basically, we identified the main requirements of a traceability system in the implementation and also the related resources that we needed. So this is how we identified some specific KPIs. Here you have some examples. Some are, once again, the ones that we also suggested yesterday. So let me just share them with you. The percentage of value chain steps with an identified and verifiable sustainability claim, and we'll go more in depth into what is a sustainability claim also later on today. So stay tuned for that. On the total number of value chain steps. The percentage of tracked value chain steps for each material and semi-finished or finished products on the total number of value chain steps, the percentage of identified and disclosed value chain partners on the total number of value chain partners, or the percentage of value chain business processes covered by the traceability system. Consider that all these aspects, all these examples as well, can be downloaded also from the policy recommendation document. You will find it in the platform and in the available documents that you can download. So it's available there. It's in Annex 1 of the policy recommendation document. So we go to the next step now, number 3, activities.
Yeah, and also here, Francesca, activities, they have a definitely relevant aspect because they put really on the ground what is the idea, what is the request coming from the vision through the objectives as smart objectives. Typically, the activities, they are defined in an action plan. They are defined as the steps that we need to identify and to go through in order to achieve and reach something. Here, we see some activities as an example. The investment. We will invest an amount of euro in advanced traceability technologies to reduce time and cost, increase the accuracy, and speed up the data transfer and exchange, and allow product identification. A second example is, in total, here we can read and go through, next year, suppliers, this number of suppliers, will be provided with training on the subject of traceability and transparency of value chains in collaboration with our sustainability, product development, marketing, purchasing teams, areas, and so on. Another example is by the end of the next year, we will make information about how many suppliers, these suppliers with a clear name and clearly identified suppliers, available easily and freely on our website. So the meaning of an activity is exactly to identify and make clear by sharing this information to the entire team, to the entire partners participating in the project, what is the expectation that we have from them, what they have to do, what they have to achieve, until when, in order to progress and get the results, the goals, the achievements of the pilot, of the project. We need governance.
We need governance, and since I don't want to ruin the surprise, so Omar, Anna, don't worry, I'm not going to tell here everything, but just the principles maybe behind a governance structure. Because of course, Andrea, as we discussed many times, here it's really a matter of how a company is organized. So it can be more vertical, it can be more horizontal, organizational chart, so it really depends. But some key principles that we would like to underline are this, the fact that the top management should be involved because, as we said, transparency and traceability strategy should be integrated within the overall sustainability strategy. So the top management needs to be involved. And also, we need to see, and we should be able to report the results once again. So all the different departments should be involved as well. So maybe we could think about a committee, let's say, that has this responsibility, maybe among others as well, within all the different departments. So involving all the different functions of the company. Another important principle, and it's the last one, because we need to discuss about this key topic also with our first poll later on today. It's important that we focus also on stakeholder communication. So we'll get there also at the end of our discussion on the action plan, but involving also the stakeholder communication and collaboration is key. And this will ensure that all traceability stakeholders understand also the common objectives and the scope of the activities in the action plan. So communicating is important.
Definitely, you have mentioned the involvement of the top management, the line management. Why? Because as any activity, any project needs resources. And this is our next step, our next, let's say, pillar we put when defining, when creating an action plan. It's important to have the right resources. In which term? Not only in terms of technology, not only really in terms of what is needed, but in particular also the people. The, let's say, so-called human resources. People are definitely the key for the success in any initiative, in any change management, in any change that the companies are doing when moving forward to the next challenge. That's why it's important to have, first of all, a top management who is making available these resources for the project, but then also to identify who are these key and best players in the project. We have seen in the pilot, for instance, that having the right people with the right information, where to find the information in the company, and with the right link in the value chain is a key for the success.
Yeah.
So I would say the dimension of the people as resources is definitely important. The first point, in my opinion, to see when talking about resources, and then definitely to have the right investment, so the right support by the top management who is then pushing for the topic. With the resources in mind, then we can move to the next step.
We need to monitor the results, of course. So monitoring and evaluating against the predefined key performance indicator is crucial, and it's actually a core element of an action plan. So the idea could be really to understand which are the risks, so perform a risk analysis, identify the traceable assets, and then have clear claims that we need to refer to. And just in this way, we'll be able to really report on the results. So setting performance indicators should start from identifying the main traceable assets linked to the claims based on the results of the risk analysis of the value chain. And here I'm referring also to what we discussed yesterday, especially in Module 3. Let's also share with you some examples here. An example could be through investments in advanced technologies, we were able to increase the accuracy and the speed of data exchange by, and here you can complete with numbers, and allow product authentication across our value chain. Or through the increase, and here you have the number / alignment of audits for traceability, we were able to publish verification data for at least, for example, 30% of our products. Or another example, the meetings with suppliers resulted in an agreement on the design of a joint traceability system. Or last, the increased transparency resulted in a higher ranking okay, indicate here the number in the transparency index. That could be also a way to also communicate with simple data. As we discussed yesterday, communicating with the simplicity, it's important. And yeah, let's maybe discuss a little bit more about communication. So
yeah.
definitely communication supports learning and success internally with value chain partners, so we understood that it's key. So sometimes we give it for granted, but it's important to communicate, of course, through sustainability reports, but not only, because it shouldn't be just there. And incorporating the reporting and communication of the requirements on the implementation of the action plan is key. We also need to establish some reporting mechanism, so this also should be included in the action plan. And I would say also sharing good practices is crucial. And lesson learned also across relevant multi-stakeholder industry platforms that we also discussed yesterday is one of the measures actually of the policy recommendation document. So yeah, would you like to add anything else, Andrea, on this
just
point?
to emphasize what you said, I mean, stakeholders are all the people who are involved in a project, typically, with different roles. It's quite often I say it's important to celebrate because as part of any project, of any change, we reach anyway some success, some good results because we learn from this experience. So it's important to recognize it, to share it in order to make very, very clear and really have also a part of fun when doing something and then celebrating this kind of success. That's why when thinking in a project about a communication, it comes to my mind always these double aspects, the celebration of what happened, and on the other side, the lesson learned. So learning from this experience in order to make it in the next step definitely in a better way by optimizing, by reaching more and greater results.
So work hard and celebrate.
Work hard and celebrate.
All right.
Here, Francesca, exactly. What we see in this last slide we are projecting, last comment, suggestion we are telling to our audience. Here we have summarized exactly what we have explained today in this first part. Here you see in a very, in one chart, ideally, the way how to create the model, how to create your action plan. Moving from the initiation phase, the conception phase, and the validation, where you make experience, you measure the results, and you show the results. Basically, we found the model on these three pillars. The stakeholder engagement, again, people are the key of the success. Right people, motivated people can make really the success or not of your pilot, of your project. Identify the issues and the action plan. Tell them what they have to do, what we expect from them, Francesca. And definitely, at the end, establish what are the goals, what are the indicators to show what is the level of success in the project, in the experience, in the pilot, in the proof of concept you want to run.
Great. Yeah, I think it's a nice way to summarize everything. And we inserted also in the Annex 1, so you will find it there. Great. So I will say we still have a few minutes for the poll, by the way. I don't know if they're still thinking about the questions. They were super hard, actually. So I really wouldn't know what to answer now. But we'll go to the results in a few minutes. We would like now to leave the floor actually to our next speaker. Yeah. And so thank you again for joining us actually through this summary of what an action plan is and how an action plan in transparency and traceability should be built. We'd like to leave the floor now to Anna from Inditex. And Anna, please bring us through actually your journey. So what was done in Inditex? You have a whole chapter dedicated to transparency and traceability in your overall sustainability strategy. Can you tell us how you built actually also your action plan, what was implemented, how you measured the results? We just leave the floor to you to tell us which was the path.
Thank you. Team. Good morning from Milano. I hope that you will find this presentation useful, and that's the point, to try to summarize how in Inditex we are implementing our traceability and transparency program. For us, traceability and transparency are not an end by themselves, thank you, but are a fundamental means to develop the sustainability strategy, and this is our vision. No? For Inditex, sustainability means the path that needs to be taken to achieve a fairer society in balance with the limits of the planet. We must drive this path as a responsible company and in collaboration with all of our stakeholders. This approach is part of our corporate values and ethical culture, and it's fully integrated in all the areas within the business model. Social and environmental sustainability are central to who we are as a company. While our business model has fundamentally remained the same, the way in which it operates is constantly evolving in order to ensure that traceability and sustainability is incorporated in all the areas of the company. Sustainability is also present in all the processes and decisions making, covering design, logistics, stores, headquarters, and all links that make up our value chain. In our last general annual meeting, we announced new and ramp-up sustainability targets because our aim is constantly increase our level of ambition. First, let me point out that we have a strong track record in terms of sustainability. For us, it has been an early priority and it's in the top of our agenda. Our journey goes all the way back to 2001, when we released our first Code of Conduct for manufacturers and suppliers. The latest update of the code was approved in 2012 for the purpose, among others, to reinforce the traceability in the supply chain. Indeed, traceability is one of the requirements of the code. I would like to highlight some of the initiatives that are reflected in the slide. As early as 2005, we launched our DNA program, which include some features of traceability through an external tool. 2007 was another landmark year for the group because we signed the Global Framework Agreement with IndustriAll, the global union. This pioneering agreement was the first one to encompass the entire supply chain of a retail company, and it was designed to promote and protect the labor rights. In 2013, we were one of the initial backers of the Accord. This is a benchmark initiative that looks for the implementation of building health and safety measures in the Bangladesh garment industry. In terms of traceability, a new fungal internal system was consolidated. An important year was 2015 because we launched our John Life label. John Life identifies our garments made from the most sustainable raw materials and the most environmentally friendly productive processes. In the same year, we joined the ACT initiative, a collaboration within 19 brands and IndustriAll representing the textile and footwear workers, and its objective is to achieve living wages in the sector. It is also remarkable that in 2018, we did a major update of our internal traceability system to include additional processes. And finally, as I previously mentioned, last summer, our executive chairman announced new and ramp-up sustainability targets. For example, all our cotton will be more sustainable by 2023, 2 years ahead of schedule. So, as we have seen in Inditex, we have been working since many years to have the tools and the processes that enable the identification of all the suppliers and manufacturers involved in the production of our articles. This identification is carried out to ensure that all of them comply with our social, environmental, and product health and safety requirements. We also pay special attention to the raw materials that we use in our production. And as Francesca said, we have a specific chapter in our annual report to show all of our stakeholders about the progress of the different initiatives. Furthermore, traceability is one of the key points for our stakeholders, and this is something that is reflected in our materiality matrix. In this matrix, traceability has deemed one of the most critical topics for all the stakeholders involved in the analysis, both internal and external. In 2020, it was at the top 3. All of these elements reinforce the importance of having an integral traceability vision and management throughout the sustainability strategy. Our collaboration with the UNECE initiative was also an important lighthouse that led us to the point, and we which realized that that was the right approach. But first of all, let me give you some context. In 2020, Inditex supply chain encompassed around 1,800 direct suppliers, those with whom we have a direct commercial relationship, and around 8,500 factories. If we talk about raw materials, in 2020, around 21% of them were from a more sustainable source. This is in line with our commitment that, for example, in 2023, all the cellulose fibers will be sustainable, and by 2025, all the polyester will be more sustainable or recycled. In order to apply our sustainability requirements, including the traceability ones, we work with 12 clusters. This means that we have local experts in sustainability in Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Turkey, and in the Asian and American production countries. This is very important to be close to the supply chains in order to help our suppliers that are our partners in the sustainability strategy. After this context, the need of an integral traceability management is even more obvious. For us, in order to build that robust and successful sustainability strategy, for us this meant to create a fully dedicated area independent from what we call the technical areas of sustainability, social, environmental, product health and safety, and with its own resources. If we talk about governance, in our case, the traceability area reports directly to the Chief Sustainability Officer, which is part of the senior management of the company. This chief reports directly to the CEO and to the Sustainability Committee. This is a consultative and informative body that advises the boards of executives and oversees all the sustainability proposals. If we talk about culture, the same way that sustainability is integrated in all the business areas, traceability is also a transversal part of this sustainability culture. All of our objectives and activities are defined and implemented in a collaborative way with representatives from other areas of the sustainability family, representatives from other areas of the company, especially the buying teams, and representatives from external stakeholders, especially our suppliers. Another important point that reflects our commitment with sustainability is since 2019, a variable annual remuneration in Inditex for all the staff is linked to the compliance with the sustainability targets. As I think Andrea mentioned before, resources are key. The robust backup from the management company was essential to facilitate the creation of the area and the allocation of separate resources, human and financial, since its inception. Human resources are particularly key. In our case, we decided to incorporate transversal profiles with knowledge from different areas of the company and with a management-centric approach. These profiles are complemented with others that are more technical. And the final goal for this is to build a multidisciplinary team with staff located in headquarters and also in the clusters. In relation with financial resources, we estimate them based in the different initiatives that are proposed by the different working groups that are developing the strategy. These financial resources include IT developments, verification processes, suppliers monitoring and supporting, and so on. I think Virginia summarized it very well yesterday in her presentation. I have to admit that to estimate these investments sometimes is difficult. because we are living in a very changing situation. I'm convinced that the entire industry are fully aware about the challenges that traceability and transparency entail. But part of these challenges can be seen as opportunities. We are now currently living the traceability momentum. Policymakers are promoting traceability, promoting transparency, and there are different enablers that are moving forward a wide range of initiatives in terms of traceability. We have already had the opportunity of learning from our experiences, and we are trying to apply these lessons learned in the next steps of the strategy. I would like to share with you part of these lessons. The first one is measurement. If you can measure it, you can improve it. At the initial stage of any activity, we need to define is key how we are going to measure the progress of that activity. Because at the beginning, sometimes we are too much focused on the final goal and we forget about this. The second point that is also very important is the training to the supply chain. Working with different types of suppliers in different countries is challenging for business and also for traceability. In this sense, training and capability building are essential. Our clusters are a very powerful tool for that because they are close to the supply chains and to our local commercial teams. By supporting our clusters, we are supporting our suppliers, and we can be sure that they are aligned with our sustainability strategy. Because if they don't understand what is the final goal for us, they cannot be a partner with us. Another key point is the integration of the commercial teams in the process of designing and implementation of any initiative. They have an invaluable knowledge of sourcing and production processes. And a word to bear in mind is also scalability. To build a proper management framework, we need a unique identifier at location, company, and process level. We are committed to the search and development of common industry solutions that, in the one hand, enable the scalability within the business, and in the other hand, don't put our supply chain under a requirement fatigue. Innovation is fundamental because it's a part of the future of traceability. It is necessary to allocate resources in participating in testing the technologies and other initiatives that are available in the industry. And finally, I fully agree with you that all the actors involved in the traceability strategy need to have the proper information to make decisions. And they need it on time and in time. This includes the external ones. This includes, for example, for us, is key to give that information and that feedback to our own suppliers. So for us, by virtue of our efforts, by applying traceability and transparency standards, we can be sure that our sustainability requirements are fulfilled, championing a responsible model. While we have a long-standing commitment to sustainability, we understand that this commitment is a work in progress. It's a never-ending task. The recently created area has collaborated with the Policy Recommendation Project from the beginning. We will embrace this recommendation by evolving our management of traceability to the next level with a new traceability policy and the digital ecosystem which we have defined in our call to action that is going to be released, I don't know if today or tomorrow, these days. Sustainability and traceability need a joint action with all the stakeholders together to be really developed. As a conclusion, I would say that traceability needs a collaborative approach to drive large-scale solutions. Thank you.
Anna, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
so Andrea, let me add that, and I think here I'm also speaking for the UNECE team, so thanks to Inditex and thanks to all the companies that shared really a lot of inputs during the consultation phase, not just for the action plan, for the overall policy recommendation document. So thank you all really for the commitment really that you had during these 2 years together. And thank you also for joining the pledge as well. And once again, we remind you that the pledge is still open, and you can always join us. So thank you. All right, anything else we'd like to add before we go to the results of the poll, Andrea?
Francesca, I'm a bit curious, and I have a couple of questions for Anna. I mean, was great to see, you call them clusters, the involvement of your network, of your partners. And this is something that we are experiencing also in the pilot, in this UNECE pilot. There are many challenges when we have really to involve 1,800 direct suppliers. So it's a so huge network, so many people, so many partners to talk with, to convince, to tell them, to train them. You have also mentioned the training. How can you manage such a complexity? Can you give us some suggestions?
Well, I think that is before training is communication. For us, what we are trying to do is to keep them updated about any initiative, even the ones that are in a design phase. For example, right now, the pandemic has brought us some tools that we didn't use before. My colleagues used to have these conversations physically by traveling several times per year to the different countries. Right now, with the new technologies, for example, we have a weekly meeting with all the traceability teams in the clusters, and we are talking with them about specific projects and ideas. And they are starting to help us even with the definition of the strategy, because of course that our strategy needs to be with a complete scope, but some parts maybe we need to adjust depending on the situations of the supply chains, because not all the countries in the industry works the same way. So in this case, of course, training is great, but I would suggest and recommend basically talk to them. Talk to them and listen to them. It's true that sometimes you cannot give to them answer to everything, or you cannot admit any of their suggestions, but they need to feel that they are part of it, and especially right now with this situation. But it's something that is not very technical, but for us is working, because at the end of the day, with this communication, they feel part of the strategy and they are motivated.
Yeah. This feeling of being part of the game, I think it's a key for success. How do you see to have them also in the governance of a program for TT, for instance, for traceability and transparency? How is possible with so many partners to create a sort of governance body that can really take also some decisions and giving directions to a program?
In that case, we organize by initiative. No? For example, if we need to develop a project related to a specific topic, and for example, in India, they are specialists of that topic, we build a working team. And for example, in that case, maybe one person of that cluster can lead the working group. So the reporting is the same for an initiative, as I explained, but the person who leads each working group came from different areas within the sustainability, or even from other areas of the company, because for some activities is key that activity is lead, for example, for a buyer, because he's a specialist of a specific workflow for a specific product. So in this case, they are going to report directly to the chief about that initiative.
Great.
And the really last question, Francesca, sorry, but really
yeah,
my
go for it,
curiosity...
and then we'll call Omar into the discussion.
Yeah, sure. Anna, you have mentioned the scalability as one of your pillars, important pillars. And also here, in the pilot, in the UNECE pilot, we are now at this stage. We have the proof of concept with some very good results, and it's now matter really to move to a larger scale. How then to face this scalability in a so large network environment?
I think that the pain point here is the identification. I mean, I think that this is a problem for the industry and for the scalability of a lot of projects, because as we, of course, we are partners to all our value chains, but we have more relation for projects with direct suppliers. It is key to have this unique identification through all the value chain in order to scale those proof of concepts. So I think that the industry need to be aligned in that goal, because if not, what we are going to create is to each factory to have 20 IDs for the 20 projects that the different suppliers are onboarding them. I think that is maybe, for me, is the first step. After that, of course, that we are going to face some important challenges, but I think that it's important to know to who you are communicating with. Because right now, the proof of concept is a limited scope.
Thank you very much, Anna. You're right, Francesca.
We're really interested.
Yeah, I would like to continue to put some
we
more
entered
questions.
into the core of the discussion, so that's perfect. I will say this is our moment to ask a question to the consultant, actually, because we have a consultant connected. And Omar, actually, Omar Cadamuro, Director Retail and Consumer at PwC, will answer our questions. So Omar, welcome. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Thank you.
Hi, Omar. Nice to see you.
Sure.
Welcome officially.
Perfectly.
Great. Okay, so Omar, would you like to, of course, introduce yourself, if you like to add some points on what you do in your everyday working life, and then we can go through the questions. Actually, let's focus on the first. We already have the results of the poll, I believe, but we don't show them. First of all, we like to listen to your answer.
So you want to test if I'm with the audience? Well, I'm a director within PwC consumer market team in Italy, and also I belong to EMEA senior team. And well, my job consists in helping companies to deliver the change in terms of business transformation. And in my background, I had the chance to help more than 100 companies, mainly belonging to the fashion and luxury and textile sector. So this is my area of comfort.
So you're the right person, Omar. So let's answer the first question then. The first question, I will remind you, is how to shape the governance of a TT program. Let's call it TT program from now on, of your company. So if you had to suggest to a company how to shape the governance of a TT program, what would you say? Which answer would you give? Do you have the answers in front of you?
Yeah. But okay. I would just to elaborate somehow.
Sure.
A TT program, I'm convinced that it is an expression of the vision and of the values of the company. And also with a TT program, companies expose some sensitive data, such as production location, KPIs, factories, suppliers, and so on. So there is also a risk that company bear share this information. Therefore, I think that there should be a top management body, part of the board of directors or a representation of shareholders that should sponsor the TT program. And then if we look at the program itself, it's a project. So we need project managers. We need also business owners and stream leaders that carry out the change and the transformation. So I would recommend to set up a cross-functional team with a leader, a project manager that reports to the steering committee that is expression of the board of directors of shareholders. And on the lower end of this project organization, we have people, let's say, stream leaders belonging to the supply chain for sure, because supply chain is one of the most impacted areas. The IT, because we need to implement this kind of programs, we need a technology infrastructure because there is a huge, I would say, amount of data information to be managed. And also somebody from other functions such as sustainability. But this is the working group inside the company. But if we look at the whole ecosystem in a TT program, we have also the involvement of external partners, such as suppliers. We have heard that we have learned from Inditex that from Anna that they involved 1,800 suppliers in their program. So the project management team belonging to, let's say, the company acts as a control tower, and then we have the involvement of all the other partners that are led by this central team. I would say this would be a standard organization for a project like this. It is somehow very, very complex.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if...
Thank you, Omar. And yes, actually, we'd like to compare with the results of the poll, if we have available already the result of the first poll, so we can maybe have it on screen, and then if you want, Anna, of course, you can always comment. So let's see what the answers were. So I remind you, the first one, it's a topic for the management board of the company, but the actually the highest number of questions, and I don't see the percentage at the moment, I think it's no, I don't see it really. Andrea, do you see here? 33. Okay, I see it here. The orange is 33. This will be a shared responsibility among the different functions, departments in the company. And the top here is 36. I read it. It's in yellow. A governance model, including the most of the business partners in my value chain. And then just a few, an external and neutral organization should take care of the governance. So I think it's consistent.
Francesca, that is fully aligned with what we have really received from Anna and from Omar. Really exactly. The first is to try to be inclusive by involving the entire value chain, all the partners, and then setting internally a shared responsibility with a specific team, but with the functions representative from different functions in this internal project team, as mentioned by Omar.
Great. So we go to the second question then.
Yeah, let's move to the second.
I remind you the second question. What are the most relevant activities to start with if you want to step in action for a TT program? Omar, what would you say here? And then later on we'll also see the results.
This is an interesting question, as we need to step into a new program. Well, every transformation program that I have dealt with in my career, and This is a quite high number, especially when there is a change impact inside and outside the company. Well, need a structured planning phase. Here we are talking about a program with an involvement, I would say, of internal and external actors, with a potential high impact on brand reputation. Investments may be significant, and also systems may be impacted. So I would suggest to start with a planning and scoping phase. This means to define objectives, define the strategy, outline, the granularity on the information that we will need to track, define the overall infrastructure, the principle for infrastructure, define the scope also, because this may affect in initial phase some countries rather than others, some product lines rather than others, and so on. And this will allow the project team to prepare a master plan with time frames and with responsibility, because also the team must be appointed at the beginning of the project. And for sure, probably one of the most important things is the budget for the investment. At the same time, I would start also the stakeholder mapping, so to understand who will be impacted by the program, who will involve, and the degree also of involvement. So probably I would the most suitable answer is number 2. But also I would say number 3.
Yeah, and Omar, this is perfectly consistent. Maybe. It's perfectly consistent with the answers that we received, as a matter of fact. So they answer first, actually number 3, with 36% of all the answers. So identify some use cases as a proof of concept. And then they answered plan a common strategy and onboard your value chain partners in this initiative. So yeah, they agree with you. The audience is actually can go concrete, wants to go concrete with a proof of concept first, I would say. Yeah, okay. So Anna, anything else you would like to add?
I fully agree with that, with the general audience, that the Plan a Common strategy is the first step. This doesn't mean that you are not going to have to adjust the strategy over and over if necessary, if the results of the proof of concepts are not the ones expected. But I think that to have at least a general level strategy is the first point. Perfect. To start with.
So we go now to question number 3, and before showing it on the screen, I will let Omar answer on this question. So Omar, this is for you. How long it takes to fully implement a TT program within a value chain? Is it 1 year, 1 to 3 years, more than 3 years? No end. It's a continuous activity. So what would you say?
Well, normally consultants, when asked this kind of question, answer depends.
Depends.
But yeah, in this case, the duration of the programs may vary upon different parameters. Basically, the complexity determines the length, the time length. So the number of countries, the complexity of the value chains, the availability of standardized information, or the need to create this information, the number of applications to be integrated, the number of suppliers, and so on. But I would say that given the fact that when the TNT program will be in place, then it will be maintained, it will need to be maintained in a continuous way. If I think to the project time frame itself, I would answer from 1 to 3 years, because normally companies, when they prepare their business plan, they look at a 3 years horizon. So programs that are longer than 3 years maybe somehow not very concrete, and also the decision on these long programs may be somehow slower. Less than 1 year is not sufficient in my opinion. So that's it. One to 3 years.
So let's see the results. So coming from the poll of the audience, no end. It's a continuous activity. It's clear that is the most. Yeah, it's 80%. Actually, 80% of the audience answer is no end. It's a continuous activity. And then, yeah, they agree with you. Is 1 to 3 years, 9%. 1 year, 9%, and over 3 years is 2%.
Yeah, Francesca, I think that exactly here we see that our audience sees this topic as a continuous activity.
As a journey, yeah.
And not just exactly a fragmented, or let's say, a project that has to be completed in a short or anyway closed period. Definitely, it's an ongoing activities, and we have seen, especially with the large networks, with many suppliers and so on, for the many companies, this is really taking a lot of time, and moving to the next steps, to the improvement of the plan takes definitely long time. That's why probably a continuous activity.
Yeah, but then step by step, you also need to share the results, and also, I would say, yeah, actually try to leverage on these results and communicate also positively with your stakeholders. And okay, so let's go now to the next question. What are the most relevant aspects of a TT program to support a sustainability strategy? So what do you think, Omar? Evidence and foundation of the company claims, coverage on social and environmental aspects, inclusion of all the partners in the value chain, measurable data and reliable information. Here we'll say all.
Well, I believe that at least 3 out of 4 of these options are right or reasonable. The TNT program should for sure cover environmental and social KPIs. So number 2 is probably the way that somehow supports the sustainability strategy. But at the same time, the inclusion of all the partners in the value chain is important to have an impact. If you look at the footwear industry, suppliers such as tanneries have a huge impact on environment, and so shoemakers should take it into account in their sustainability. So bringing them into the transparency and traceability program. So most of the answers are relevant and are right in my opinion.
Okay, Anna already confirmed all of them, I would say. So yeah, coverage and social and environmental aspects is your, let's say, preferred choice. Omar, let's see if they agree. Well, actually, I think we were so insisting on the measuring yesterday that I think we influenced the audience. So I think it's a little bit misleading, probably. So we see here basically 50% of the audience, both online and here in class, in our auditorium, measurable data and reliable information. So yeah, they're all important, of course, but yeah, here the scale is measurable data and reliable information. Second in the ranking is inclusion of all partners in the value chain, and then coverage of social and environmental aspects, and finally evidence and foundation of the company claims. So yeah, we influence the audience.
Yeah, and maybe from another side, Francesca, there is also an expectation. I read this answer, this result, as an expectation from companies from the industry to have also data to be used then to enter in a sustainability strategy, in a sustainability activity of the company. So it's definitely a good point in my opinion, because on one side we can really offer a program to move to transparency and traceability as culture. Also Anna mentioned the importance of the culture in their program. But on the other side, that this has to be measured and has to offer data. And this is exactly what we have experienced also in our pilot, in the cotton pilot. Tomorrow we will talk a lot about data and how to measure the data, how to use the data, how to share this information, how to consider also some aspects like the confidentiality and so on. So it's definitely, I read it as an expectation, let's say, from companies and people ready to start a journey in the transparency and traceability.
So yeah, we have a data-driven audience, and the influence culture, yes, it's also coming from data. Yeah, we have a data-oriented approach. All right, so let's go to the next question then. We asked you, which sentence better describes how often is your company how open is your company to share information about products and value chain activities? And Omar, what do you think in this case? Is it the information about the product tracking is necessary, full transparency is optional, or you believe it's needed as well, is 100% traceability and transparency? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I believe that in this case, the role of policymakers and rulers, such as national government, is crucial to speed up, the adoption of TNT systems by companies. I want to quote the Russian case that in 2018 issued a governmental order number 791. I was involved in a number of projects that I supported companies to comply with governmental rules. So, and in this case, they obliged the company to adopt a tracking marking code that was defined by their central authority for that, and to integrate with their system and provide information regarding the products, where it was produced, and a number of other information. In this case, the change was accelerated because by July 2021, all the footwear companies that wanted to make business in Russia, to sell their product in Russia, they needed to be integrated with this system. I do not totally agree with this approach. I think that companies should define their own statement on traceability. A global standard would be welcome in terms of protocols and data exchange. Nonetheless, each company should choose which information they can share and which information is sensitive and confidential for also competitive advantage and should not be shared. So I would say number 2 and number 3. Probably I'm more with number 3. Looking at the options.
basically, Omar, you're saying that number 2 will be perfect. The full and open information must be published, but keeping the sensitive data unpublished, basically. Let's see where the answers have been focusing mainly. So actually, we have number 2. No, sorry. Number 2 is transparency is needed. Full and open information must be published, but under a clear roadmap established by policymakers and organizations. So yes, this is the number 2. And the second most frequent answer with a 30% would be our statement is full and open information must be published from the origin to the end consumer. So probably keeping the sensitive data unpublished as we're adding. Yesterday we have been talking a lot about the importance of transparency as well. We mentioned that this is important also, and it could be relevant to also support the SMEs. We have been mentioning about tools such as shared audits and there are different platforms here in order to support the SMEs on this. We discussed about this with Aerotax yesterday and also with the ITC, so you can always go back to the previous modules in order to go more in depth, and we'll provide also additional information in the next days to you. So I would say that this is a key topic. So all the companies decide, but at the other on the other side, we also need to understand how to support the SMEs with tools, also transparency tools and traceability tools. All right, so Andrea, would you like to make a comment on this? Would you like to go to the next question?
Yes, I would just emphasize the 1/3, the yellow answer, this 30%. It seems to me that at least 1/3 of, let's say, of the audience, of the industry, of the companies are ready to move without the need to have a compulsory law or a direction given by national governments, organizations, and so on. And that's great because there is already a quite large openness really to move toward this direction of the full transparency, full traceability of the products.
Yeah.
I think it's a very great result for this 1/3.
Yeah, what's needed next probably is also a change of culture, a culture not of just the single company, but also of the industry. So my point of view is that it will take time, and we have seen already in the last 2 years how much actually the culture has been changing, and we are talking now more and more about transparency and traceability, and this is the way forward, and we are here for this also to support the culture of traceability and transparency. Please, Anna.
I think that this, I agree, because I think that independently of the strategy of each company, what I think that the sector needs is a clear technical guideline and regulation, because independently of this transparency strategy, I think that we need to give to the customers the tools to compare, like we said, apples with apples. No, I think that the technical guidance is here clear, and I think that I choose the second option too, because I think that the policymakers and organizations together need to build those technical guidelines.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we are actually approaching the last question now. What are the main drivers to convince your company to dedicate investment and resources to implement a TT program? A positive effect on reputation and brand positioning, a direct impact on company profitability, additional services for the customers and the suppliers in the value chain, a progress for the entire community towards a more sustainable environment. What is your choice, Omar?
Well, to answer this question, I think to a survey. Every year for the last 12 years, PwC runs surveys at a global level that is aimed at tracking consumer trends and behavioral attitudes for purchasing. Looking at the last 3 editions, we have observed a growing number of respondents that are very sensitive to environmental impact. In 2021, over 50% say that they are more eco-friendly than in the past, and 58% claim 6 out of 10 consumers claimed for transparency. So I strongly believe that TNT programs will not only have a positive impact on brand reputation, but will become an enabler, a must-have for companies to stay in the market. It will be somehow a necessary system to have implemented for the coming years. And of course, this will allow communities and consumers that now they are driving the change. The communities and consumers are driving the change. They are leading the companies to deliver this change in the transparency, in their transparency behavior. So the overall effect will be a progress for all the community, and I mean community, and with community I include the companies and all their stakeholders, including their clients, towards a more sustainable environment, and hopefully this will lead to to limit the human impact on the planet and on the environment, and this is one of the principles of the sustainable policy.
Omar, you're actually underlining a key message that was also coming from the voice of the millennials. So we listened to the voice of Guru yesterday, and she was very clear with the video in saying and confirming this full transparency that is needed, also on the point of view of the final consumers, the end users. So I'm curious to see the results here, and yes, they confirm clearly. This is the green data, the most frequent answer, 51%. I would say close to the results of the PwC consumer panel. So thank you, Omar, for that. It's a little bit, a few percentages lower. A progress for the entire community towards a more sustainable environment. And then, yes, the other answers are close. So I think it's a clear message for us, I would say, to conclude our panel. So thank you all. Andrea, you will continue actually for the next modules as well. All right.
Some questions on the Q&A, and one from for Iria.
All right, so we have a little bit, a few minutes actually to dedicate to the questions. So we received some questions for Anna, and then I will tell you what's next. All right, so the first question is related to how to minimize the effects of corruption and fraud in the first mile. And the question is coming from Eric Schnöckel, from trustfactors.org. So how do you minimize the effects of corruption and fraud in the first mile? And this is a question for Anna.
Well, in that case is, again, joint action. Is in sustainability, there's like a base that is identify and remediate. I think that yesterday, I don't know who one of the speakers was explaining about this, that is not successful, is not a success, not identifying any non-compliance, no? But I think in this line is the same approach as with social and environmental compliance ever, is to identify, to do a root case analysis, and to strengthen the processes. It's true that in some cases it's complex, but if we do it all jointly So that's why we think that we need to all work towards the standards, procedures with organizations. We work with the standards, for example, with textile exchange, and I think that we need to all governments, associations, and retailers to work together, root case analysis and remediation. It's the same approach as with other non-compliance.
Thank you, Anna. And we have another question, actually, for you from Paul Roland. And Paul was here yesterday. Paul, here you are. So I will leave you the floor to answer, but unfortunately, we don't have the microphone, so I mediate. I will do it for you. Paul would like to ask Anna, would you also start to do transparency, which is actually, probably Inditex Group has not been pushing so much on the communication. It's part of your DNA, I would say. So are you going to improve that in the future, so increase the level of communication, and for instance, also disclosing in the OER, so the Open Apparel Registry?
Well, as I mentioned before, we are supporting the creation of these technical guidance. We are disclosing the relevant information with our relevant stakeholders, for example, industry ALL. So we are working towards and evolving constantly. But for us, transparency is not an option, it's a need.
So you communicate even more in the future, in the next steps, starting from traceability.
Yes, with the proper guidelines. But we support transparency, and as I mentioned, we share with our stakeholders the relevant information.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so I think we can conclude here the first session. Thank you so much also to our speakers, and especially to our speakers, Anna, Omar, Inditex, and PwC. So thank you again. You will see Andrea later on today, so we'll leave the floor open to the discussion also for the next panels. Thank you, and just a few indications for all of you. So online, we'll meet again at 11:30, so about 13 minutes from now, and we'll focus next with Maria Teresa first, and then entering in Module 6, the Business Process Analysis, BPA, for Sustainable and Circular Textile and Leather Value Chain. And for those of you who are here in the auditorium, the coffee will be served again, just like yesterday, at Bar La Centrale in the building. So you can follow the welcoming team at the entrance, and we will go together to the bar to have a coffee together. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day.